All right, welcome to the Krug Show, everybody. It is August the 28th, 7:03 on the West Coast, 10:03 on the East Coast. Grant Cohn in the house. Niners practice today. They're off tomorrow. Tomorrow is the cut-down day. They're going to have to pair their roster to 53. Grant, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Always a pleasure to see you. Doing well. You look good. You look relaxed.
I'm very relaxed.
You look like you're having a great
relaxed.
day. Like you just had the best day and no one knows about it. Like it's your secret. And I like that.
No, I don't know if it was the best day because you know what? I forgot that training camp and regular season practice is totally different. Training camp, we actually get a chance to see practice. Today, I drove 50 miles to see quarterbacks warm up, and then a drill or two, and then I had to wait for an hour and a half for these guys to finish practice, and then I got to talk to 3 players.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
Times. Yeah.
I did not see you today, so I figured you probably were like, you know what? Not today. Today was not your day. All right, Trey Lance to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. It happened Friday night. We were all anticipating that something was probably going to happen because of the way the 49ers have been discussing this whole thing. But what's interesting to me, Grant, and tell me what you think on this one, I just think something changed for the 49ers because Trey Lance was a raw quarterback the day that they first watched film of him. He was a raw quarterback on draft day. He was a raw quarterback when they first saw him in their first mini camp, the first training camp. So they knew what they had. They knew he was a raw quarterback, but something happened to their timeline along the way that made them really impatient to the point where it's got to be now or never kind of a thing. And I'm just kind of wondering what you think the dynamic is. There's an unspoken part of this Trey Lance Niners dynamic, and I think it's the Niners timeline switched after they already had drafted this quarterback.
Well, I don't really look at it that way. I look at it as the Niners didn't get results with Trey. They tried to develop him on the bench. They tried to develop him on the field. They didn't get results. And going into year 3, he was overhauling his mechanics with a coach that they didn't recommend. So by that time, they had already hitched their wagon to Brock Purdy. There was no reason to really keep trying with Trey Lance anymore because Brock Purdy is what they want. So they gave up. But I think it's not that the timeline changed. Like you said, they knew he was raw. They knew he was a project. I just felt like they felt that they couldn't get any results with him. Maybe they blamed him. Maybe they felt it was his fault. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, now he's with another coach and he's down in Dallas with Jeff Christensen. Like, we're going to see where he goes from here. I just feel like they threw their hands up and they said, why should we keep trying when we have Brock? Okay. I think they just wanted to have an experienced, competent backup, not two young quarterbacks. And I think that's a mistake. You had a good problem on your hands. You had two good, young, promising quarterbacks. Now you have one good, young, promising quarterback, but we'll see what happens with Trey in Dallas.
Okay, tell me what you think of this theory. I think that after they lost last year in the NFC Championship game to Philly, that they probably had some meeting with Jed, who basically said, hey, you know what? Quarterback anything is no longer an acceptable excuse. And you have to. It can no longer be an acceptable excuse, whether it be injuries to quarterbacks or quarterbacks that didn't develop at the speed that we wanted to see. I just feel like maybe Jed injected himself into this equation and said, guys, because from afar, I think most people would say Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have a lot of job security, but they didn't run this off season like guys who have a lot of job security. They ran this off season like guys who need this season to happen for them or else. Am I reading that wrong? It just seemed like going into they seemed like they were playing with the house's money going into the playoffs. Coming out of the playoffs, it was almost like Jed sat down with them and said, hey guys, we want Lombardi trophies and we want them now. And if you can't, whatever's going to deliver it the soonest, do it because your time's running out. You don't think so?
I mean, I do think the Yorks are upset, but I don't think that the Yorks said, we need a Lombardi trophy now, get rid of Trey Lance. I think the fact that the Niners, that Kyle and John got rid of Trey Lance, I think that might have added to the Yorks' anger. Like, look, you were the ones that told us Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't good enough. You were the ones that told us to spend these picks, our picks, not your picks. We spent $30 million of our money on this kid for nothing. So fine. We've backed you. We've been patient with you, but you better be right about Brock. You better win the Super Bowl. We're freaking pissed. You're on notice. That's the way I see it. Like, they didn't come down hard on Kyle and John until the book was closed on Trey Lance. But now that it's closed, man, you wasted $30 million. You wasted premium draft capital. You've been to the 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games. Great. But if you slip up, if you fall back, we're always going to point back to this trade. It doesn't matter what Trey Lance does in Dallas. If the Niners go 9-8 this year and have injuries, well, they could have had more depth if they had 3 first-round picks. It's always going to come back to this, and I think the Yorks are upset, and I think that's why you saw such a sort of Kyle with his tail between his legs after that game on Friday night. That's what I thought.
He did sound very. Okay. If you're one of these people that wanted to hear Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch fall on the sword for the Trey Lance trade, I thought you heard that Friday night. Did you hear?
Definitely,
and that's what
Kyle.
I got out of it.
Definitely from Kyle. John was like, "Hey man, we own it. We own it, man." Like, he's kind of saying like, "Hey, Kyle owns it," and Kyle was like, "Man, I feel like I let Trey down. I was the one that wanted him here." Like, yeah, man, you did let him down, and you were the one that wanted him here. And I get the feeling that John was like, "Hey, I think Jimmy's good enough."
Okay, if John and Kyle both stated that, hey, Trey's story's not written, and I'm of the belief that isn't also the case, that his story is not written, and we don't know if he's going to be good. Why the impetus to move him then?
Why the
cap-related?
impetus to move him?
Yeah, I mean, if Kyle still thinks that he's going to be a good quarterback and isn't willing to say he's a bust, is that just to protect Trey's feelings, or do you think he actually believes he's going to be good? And then Lynch also said, "Hey, you know what? We think there's more coming for Trey. His time ran out here." Do you believe that, or is that what they're just saying?
Here's my interpretation. I think Kyle misread the situation. I always feel like everyone's like, "What's Kyle's plan here?" Like, man, he messed up. I think what he wanted, I think he feels Sam Darnold is better than Trey, but I think he felt he could keep all 3. And I think if he felt if he would string Trey along and make this decision real late, that he would have a decision of be a 3rd-string quarterback on my team or be a 3rd-string quarterback on another team. And to Kyle's surprise and chagrin, Trey chose to be a 3rd-string quarterback on another team. I don't think Kyle saw it coming. I think it really shocked him. And I think he wishes he still had Trey as his 3rd-string quarterback, but Trey's a 3rd-string quarterback for Dallas now because I think Trey feels lied to and betrayed. And I understand if he feels that way. And I think it's good for him to go to a organization that is 100% behind him, unlike the Niners. So I think that's what happened. I don't think Kyle wanted to get. He said it in an interview on KMBR the day before they traded him. Like, I don't want him to leave. I want him to be the 3rd-string quarterback. I think Kyle really didn't realize that Trey would rather go anywhere else than be here. It was a real slap in Kyle's face. And I think sometimes Kyle's like, "What? I'm a nice guy." Like, no, man, like you really grate on some players. You can be extremely negative, and I think some players don't like you think they do. He seemed genuinely surprised that Trey Lance was like, "I'm done with you, Kyle." Yeah, I would have been done with you too in his position, man. You're not in his side. Sorry.
I mean, do you believe that Kyle thinks he's going to be good? Because if he does, why is he trading him to the 3rd best team in the conference? I mean, you could have traded him to any other number of teams. It seemed like they wanted to get the best return, and they can say that, hey, because remember when they said they were going to trade him, it was like, or at least discuss trading him. It was like, well, if he can find a place where he can thrive. But he's not number 2 in Dallas. He's number 3 in Dallas. And the fact that you sent him to Dallas over anywhere else kind of says to me that they prioritized the return more than where he went.
Yeah,
I believe Dallas offered them the most.
It's the most they could have gotten for him, so that's great. But I think when Kyle says, I think he understands. Like, look, I never gave him a chance. I have my reasons for not giving him a chance, and I also didn't coach him very well. Like, I can't coach mechanics. Greasy can't coach mechanics. John Beck didn't get any results, but Jeff Christensen did, and Mike McCarthy has developed a Hall of Fame quarterback. He developed Aaron Rodgers. Like there is a chance that Trey Lance does have success, and I think that's what everyone in the Niners is trying to say. Like, look, we didn't have the opportunity for him. It didn't work out. We'll own it, and we'll eat, the money and the picks. But that doesn't mean he's going to be bad somewhere else. You don't think he's going to be bad somewhere else. Jimmy Garoppolo was asked about him today, and he said, I think he's going to have success in this league. So I think a lot of people are looking at Trey as like, look, it didn't work out with the Niners. They didn't give you an opportunity. You had a couple opportunities, but essentially you didn't get one. He's still 23. Let's see what happens. That's the way I look at it, and I think Kyle might be a little nervous. But I think sending him to Dallas was a good thing, man. Like, you send him to Tampa, you might have to play right away. Like, you might stink. You go to Dallas, you get to learn on the bench from someone else, from a coach who's developed a quarterback on the bench. It might work out.
It's funny. That's what I was saying. I was saying that I think I know everybody says he needs to play. He needs to play when he's ready to play. And I think Dallas gives him an opportunity for a fresh start and more tutelage and that kind of thing. And it'll delay him playing. Let's hit some of these supers. Mboutakam says, take a shot every time they mention Trey. There you go. Red and Gold Al says, I'd be open to moving Bosa for Montez Sweat, Young, and a pick. Sweat would be cheaper and allow us to sign Brandon Ayuk and others. Would you move Bosa for Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and a pick?
No, I'd move Bosa for a quarterback. I do feel like with Trey, there was a misevaluation. Remember, this was during COVID. There wasn't a combine. And I think what they misevaluated with Trey was his athleticism. I think they thought he was faster than he is. Like, there was that report that he ran like 21 miles an hour in a game. Like, yeah, man, if you give him a 40-yard runway, he might pick up steam. But he doesn't have that burst that Kaepernick had, that Justin Fields had. And I think Kyle was disappointed that the zone read package wasn't more effective with Lance. I mean, like, he couldn't even figure out when to give it, when to keep it. He didn't do that very much in college, and he got hurt on a play where he should have handed it off, but he kept it. I think that's a big misevaluation, not just the throwing, but the actual athleticism. I think they misevaluated.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, the thing that makes you nervous is that guys who aren't strong skip the bench. Guys who are strong don't. Guys who are fast, run the 40. Guys who aren't, skip the 40. He skipped the 40. And it was like, well, he runs fast. He ran 22 miles an hour. Well, that doesn't tell us what his 40 is. The other thing I saw with Trey, and we both saw it, we talked about it a couple times at practice, is it possible that that he's almost too nice of a guy, that he doesn't have that edge that the great ones have, like a Rodgers or a Brady, or just even a Mahomes, that just like, you know what, I don't know how it's going down, but I'm not going to be denied, because it just seemed like, we saw him. They would do a drill, and they had these gigantic, 6-foot bags that weigh 60 pounds, and he would drag the bags for the camp guys, and the other quarterbacks are just jogging to the next drill.
Yeah,
I mean, it shows a great side of Trey's personality, but it's almost like a foreign-looking thing to not see him. Just, should he have had a bigger ego? I don't know. What do you think? Is he too nice?
I mean, he is who he is. I think he might be a little. He's very young. Who knows? But I think like this is a pattern the Niners get into with their top 10 picks. They always overvalue the personality, like Mike McGlinchey, Solomon Thomas. Like every time they draft these guys, they're like, man, he's got a CEO. What they say about Trey? He's got a CEO personality. They said it about McGlinchey too. They said it about Solomon Thomas. That's great. But what about the talent? Because when you're drafting top 10, top 3, you're supposed to be getting a Hall of Fame player if you're doing it right. Don't tell me about his personality. I mean, obviously we don't want a criminal, but you want the most athletic, best football player out there. And it seems like the Niners or Kyle has been overvalued, or maybe the Yorks. I mean, they're the ones that took Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers because Alex Smith's a nicer guy. So I think the Niners need to maybe stop weighing likability so much with the top 10.
Is it possible that Shanahan is just a great play caller and a great coach and not a great personnel evaluator, and that after this year he could maybe have a restructuring of this front office to the point where he doesn't necessarily have a say in personnel, and it's a little bit more on Lynch and Peters and their scouts, because they have this weirdly inconsistent draft record where they're not good at the top, especially with offensive skill position players. The guys that you would think that Kyle would have an opinion on, Joe Williams and Dante Pettis and CJ Beathard and all these guys. And then they do hit on a lot of these guys late. And I'm just kind of wondering if you think at the end of this year we may see, I don't know, if they don't get it done, some kind of juggling of duties.
I mean, at best, that sounds like something's going to have to go down if they don't get it done this year. Kyle could be fired, Lynch could be fired, or they could just reassign Kyle and say, look, man, I don't know why you keep interfering with the draft when these scouts and Adam Peters have such a good track record late. Like, let them do their jobs and you just focus on coaching. But Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, they don't want to do that. They've been in control of personnel. Like, Mike was in control of personnel in Denver and Washington. This is what they want. It's not enough for the Shanahans to be calling plays or the coach of the team. They got to be. They're big on the, like, if you want me to cook the dinner, you got to let me buy the groceries. Okay, but you're not very good at it, and maybe you should delegate. That's just who they are. It's going to be hard to convince Kyle to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, though, if you're buying bad groceries, it starts to become an issue. Thomas Tyler says Larry Jed has no spine. He doesn't do ultimatums. Rob Schneider.
I don't know.
Rob Schneider said this year is going to be a toss-up, no depth anywhere. They got depth at linebacker, but there's a lot of spots where they're not deep, and you kind of wonder about those picks that they could have had. Dave Barclay says, Grant, haven't got to talk to you live since all this. Trade Kyle, fire Lynch, trade to the Cowboys. Now I can't watch him. Wish him all the best. I'm done with this organization until Kyle is gone.
A lot of pressure on Kyle. And again, I think he can't escape this trade. It doesn't matter what Trey Lance does. What matters is that you threw away 3 first-round picks, and depth is a problem for your team now. So if injuries, limit your team to 9 or 8 wins, who cares? Can't use that excuse. You could have had 3 first-round picks. So he needs to keep winning. And, he's got the team for it, but it's football.
It's all this year. Everything's dialed into this year.
Keep winning. Yeah.
There's always pressure to win, but there's more pressure to win when you move off of a first round pick that you invested 3 ones in, and you're going with a polished quarterback. He's got to deliver the goods this year. Vicky Pellich says Kyle wrote off Lance after the way Brock Purdy played last season in the playoffs. He brought Darnold in as an insurance policy on Purdy's arm. That's what I thought initially, but maybe Darnold was there as a way to establish a surplus so you could move off of Trey Lance and do better for your cap in future years. Mike Henry says Bosa, Purdy for Herbert. Bosa brothers play together. I think a lot of people would take Herbert in a second.
Chargers wouldn't do it, but the Niners should.
Yeah, Easy Tino says, good thing we don't have to worry about Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons playing on the same line. That's who ultimately went with the pick that they had. It was him. Okay, the pastor says, how do you think fans will react if we have Trey versus Brock at Levi's on October 8th?
It'll be too good. It'll just be too good. But I don't think Trey's going to be on the field that quick for Dallas. He doesn't even know their offense yet. It's going to be a little time.
Caplo says, at what everyone fails to mention, the Cowgirls always have a good O-line. Trey will be fine when he gets his chance. Yeah, the Cowboys typically do have a pretty good offensive line. Marco Angeles, $4.99. Generic name says $4.99. They are liars. It is that simple. Feels like the creeps in the back room fixing fights while the fans cheer because it went in their favor. Mike Monahan jumps in with Grant rocking the Karen vibe. The Karen vibe. Not really sure, but we'll take that. Generic name says Kyle and John have made it feel wrong to root for the 49ers. Words can't describe how bad it feels to walk away from 3 decades of support.
Oof.
There's a lot of people that are bent on this. Jeremy Price says, Grant, the faithful will follow you into flames until you do a podcast collab with Cowgirls. Don't do it, bro. Por favor.
I won't. I promise.
Yeah.
I mean, Niner fans were. I feel like Niner fans were more patient with Trey than the Niners were. Like they were like, okay, you
they never saw him fail.
You put him on the bench. We're waiting. Like, what the hell happened? And they just don't have a good explanation. Like, well, we got Brock. Okay, all right. You could have had both. There's no rule against having both.
What do you think was the key factor in why they moved him? Were they worried about the distraction? Was it a cap situation? Because you know and I know that Trey is a great guy, and even if Trey in the 11th hour, and I don't want to hear this from people, in the 11th hour, if after they totally made it abundantly clear to Trey that they didn't want him, that he chose to say, yeah, you can move me on. Yeah, but I really don't believe that he wanted to move on. I believe that he wanted to move on once he realized they had already moved on. And he just said, okay, I'm willing to move on. I don't think he really was hardcore about moving on until he sensed from them that they were done with him. That's my read on it. If you said, what's the number one reason they moved him? Is it because he was raw? Is it because of the cap? Is it because of the distraction between the fans arguing back and forth? What do you think is the number one reason they moved him?
Because he asked for a trade. That's what I think the number one reason is. But
don't you think he only asked for a trade because they made it perfectly clear they didn't want him anymore?
No, they wanted him. They wanted him as the third. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted him to be third string on their team, and he said, no, I'll be third string on any other team. He didn't go to practice. It's hard to undo that one. As soon as he didn't go to practice that day, I think it was over. I know he came back to the facility the next day, but I think he was essentially saying goodbye to his teammates and explaining, like, look, it's nothing against you. I love you guys, but I hate this organization. I think that's essentially what was happening. I think he dumped them. And the Niners were like, all right, well, have it your way. You can go be third string somewhere else. And he was like, good. I'd love to do that. I think that's what happened.
Wow. Jordan Hovan says, have you two been seeing your views falling off a bit after the Lance trade? No, not at all. Will this affect Ayuk negotiations? Him and Trey were close coming in. I'll say this. Ayuk took the podium today, and when he was asked about it, he was just kind of very matter-of-fact, like, hey, man, it's the NFL. Times this happens. Things move on. You know, I'm focused on my thing and what my team's doing. I mean, there was no like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm going to miss this guy. I mean, he may feel that way, but he didn't express it that way.
Well, you know, he's on the record. He knows the coaches are listening, so he's probably going to be smart.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. G-Code Travels Vlog. When Bosa signs, what happens to number 11 Bosa 2.0? Am I missing something there?
I don't understand. What happens at number 11?
I'm not sure. He doesn't wear number 11. He wears 97. Mike Monahan. I kid you, Grant. Keep entertaining. There you go.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Mike's just being funny. Atlanta 3. Can Jason Poe be converted to center or fullback? Well, they were trying him at center. It sounds like from Chris Forster that might be his one spot that they like him at is more at center than at guard. I think Poe's probably going to be in the cutdown. We'll hit that in a minute. Marco Angeles says, Kyle doesn't like players who start slow and end fast. He likes players who start fast and end slow, like his Super Bowl appearances. Bang, bang. There you go. We got this one from Dazzo187. How does Trey's treatment affect potential future quarterback prospects, free agent draft prospects going forward? Well, that's a great question. What do you think, Grant? I mean, do you think other people will see the way the 49ers, handled the Trey Lance situation? I mean, draft picks, of course, have no control. But what about free agents?
I mean,
will
it's
free agents not want to come here?
I mean, draft picks don't have control. It's not the spot you want to come to if you're a young quarterback who needs development because they'll never play you. If you're Anthony Richardson, if you're a young quarterback with upside, Justin Fields, don't come to the 49ers. Avoid it at all costs.
It's funny. If Kyle really did want to run Trey, and it was that, oh my God, the one thing he noticed is that he wasn't dynamic speed wise. Why didn't they go with Fields? Fields ran 4.4 flat. Seemed like they had a real nice vibe with him at his pro day.
Yeah, I mean, you could have ran the entire RG3 offense with Justin Fields, the entire thing.
Nelson
Could
Gonzalez
have played him right away.
Yeah, I mean, Fields has you knew how fast Fields ran. He had a 4.4 flat 40. That's as fast as almost any of your wideouts. Nelson Gonzalez, how's Kalia Davis doing? The defensive end. Kalia Davis finally got his knee healthy and played in this last preseason game. I think it might be Kalia or Kinlaw for maybe one spot inside. I don't know. What did you think? I mean, Kalia had some good moments Has Kalia unseated Kinlaw with how he played in the preseason? Are they going to go back with Kinlaw? I mean, they don't stop the run, that's for sure. And Kinlaw, Kalia is definitely a better pass rusher than Javon.
I will go with Kalia.
Really? Over Javon?
I think he's a better player.
Yeah, I think he's better too. I think he gets more done. Ink Talk TV says the problem with Kyle Shanahan is his dink and dunk system. When he drafted Trey, he was supposed to change the system, not the quarterback. A plus team, C minus quarterback won't get it. There you go. Brad Brown, what happens if we trade Bosa? There's been no talk at all of them trading Bosa.
When is he going to request a trade? Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, that we'll get to Bosa in just a second. G-Code Travels Vlog, number 11, Brandon will hold out like Bosa next year. Oh, I got you. Now I'm seeing your number 11. All right, let's go to the kicking situation. Did the Niners blow it when they kissed off Robbie Gould?
I mean, he's still available, so I'm not going to say they blew it because maybe they could. Everyone has a price. I'm sure. Yeah, they could unblow it, right? Everyone has a price, but it's a little. It feels like they're both being stubborn. Like the Niners, like, no, we don't need Robbie. We did the right thing, and Robbie's like, I don't need you. So, I mean, God forbid they lose week 1 because they don't have a kicker. How do you call yourself a Super Bowl win-now team without a kicker? You don't have
I was going to say this. I mean, I think the fans are all in still. Not all in. They're a little skeptical, but I would say they're more all in than not still on the regime. But if they lose week 1 in Heinz Field because they don't get Nick Bosa signed or because their rookie kicker doesn't make a pressure kick, I think the heat gets dialed up real quick on Shanahan and Lynch and this entire season. I think there's a lot more skeptical fans after kind of the way things have come down. If suddenly the Bosa holdout, which they told us is nothing, it's going to get done. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. If it doesn't get done, or hey, they're going with the rookie kicker, and suddenly the rookie kicker falls on his face in week 1 when you had the most reliable kicker in the game. I think both those things could really, I think the vitriol could be dialed up quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, the Niners have had down seasons, 2018, 2020, and each time that people be like, well, injuries. I don't think the Niners get that excuse anymore because everyone acknowledges that they're top heavy, that they don't have depth, and if some of these players get hurt and there's no one to replace them, that's because they traded for Trey Lance and got nothing out of it. So I think they're out of excuses. They got to win. If they go back to the NFC Championship game, everything's cool. But if they're like one and done in the playoffs, let's say they win the division.
Or don't make the playoffs.
Or let's say they win 12 games, win the division, lose the first game at home in the playoffs, it's a big problem. And frankly, doesn't it feel like the vibe of the team is all off? I mean, fans are pissed about Trey Lance, who's off the team. Nick Bosa isn't here. Kickers are all hurt. I mean, Talanoa Funga's hurt. It feels like there's a black cloud hanging over this team. And it's strange because they were just in the NFC Championship back to back. But it feels like there's a black cloud hanging over this team. It feels like 2014 Niners. It doesn't feel good. I don't know what it is.
There's definitely a vibe. There's definitely a vibe of guys that are pressing. Now, I'm not saying that the players are pressing, but I think everybody knows that this offseason was filled with a lot of if you call it whatever you want, emphasis on winning the Super Bowl, urgency to win the Super Bowl, all in, kind of an all-in vibe on this season, but it has created a level of pressure that you can sense, and I think the Niners are, as an organization, to me, come across as tight as a drum. I think that everybody's worried about what everybody's saying. Sometimes you're in the locker room and the PR staff looks like they're really nervous about what potentially could be said. I think they're getting nervous about Ian Rappaport saying that Nick Bosa is potentially not going to be there week 1, and all of a sudden I think there's a lot of nervousness surrounding that report. So I just get the sense that there's just kind of a uneasiness. I mean, I know they're all in on winning a championship, but it feels like there's a lot of pressure here. That's what it feels like from afar.
I would absolutely agree. Just looking at Kyle Shanahan, the way he talked, his tone of voice after the game Friday night, I think there's a ton of pressure. They've said they have the quarterback they want. They have the backup quarterback they want. They didn't want Trey Lance anymore. They don't want to do that project. They have everything that they want. They're on their timeline. They've had so much patience. They have had winning seasons, but they've come up short 3 times. You don't get credit for coming up short. Get it done now. Get it done now, because there is no more excuses. If you don't get it done, what can you say? Yeah, we should have had that first round pick back. Yeah, we shouldn't have traded for Trey Lance. Yep, agree.
You do get the sense that there's some added pressure.
And it's not fair to, like, you can see Moody's cracking. I mean, poor Brock Purdy, dude. You have 8 career starts. Go win the Super Bowl.
Right. Oh, I mean,
you're 23.
Has there ever been more pressure on a quarterback that's this inexperienced than what's on him right now?
It's not fair. And if God forbid, he's so close to being the next Trey Lance, the next Jimmy. This is what Kyle does. He love bombs his quarterback, and then he's done with him after the first loss. Like, he can't take the first fight in his relationship. You know what I mean? That's Kyle Shanahan. The first fight, we're done. We're done. And right now, Brock's undefeated, so he loves Brock, man. Sending him love letters, making him mixes on Spotify and stuff, talking about movies they like. But as soon as if Brock loses week 1, looks bad, throws a couple picks, Kyle could dump him right on the spot, because he also has a huge crush on Sam Darnold that he's not telling anyone about, but everyone knows. Everyone really knows.
He looks at him. To me, the interesting part about this, of all the stuff that I've read, heard, to me, the interesting cut was Joe Banner, who went on that 33rd team and was like, when Kyle is done with you, he gets in a spot where there's no turning back, and there's no rebuilding, there's no chance, so like somehow, some way Trey got in that moment with him. And I just think that it was just like he was doomed at that point. And hopefully Purdy doesn't get in that moment, because that would be unfortunate. We got this one. One Bad Niner says, can the Yorks please sell the team back to Eddie D? They don't want to win bad enough, and Eddie D wouldn't put up with Kyle and John's BS. We got this one from Nelson Gonzalez. How's Ryan Hensley's Cowboy channel going? Uh-oh. How's Ryan doing? You talked to Ryan this morning. We
did a show together.
We did a show together.
Yeah, he's doing good.
He'll be fine. Ryan says, hey, guys, great show. Can this running back room survive if CMC were to ever miss time? I question it. That's a good question. I mean, they do have, to me, Ty Davis Price is one of these guys that looks great in practice, not in the games. J.P. Mason is got some fumbling issues that I think are real. We've seen him fumble, 3 or 4 times now this summer. And Elijah Mitchell has a big man's game and a small man's body, and it just seems like that doesn't add up. So I think CMC looks like he's primed for a career year. But if he goes down, I don't feel nearly as good about their chances.
No.
He's just, CMC means that much. B Cruisin 302 says, Super Bowl team with no kicker, can't stop the run. Steve Young, Darnold. Okay, I see it. Extend Kyle for 7 more years. There you go. That made me laugh. Ty Bud says, I'm the fan base. Bosa is starting to piss me off. This is now leaning more towards selfishness. You're getting hella paid, but screw your teammates, right? Right? What's your read on Bosa? Why don't we get to Bosa, the Bosa holdout? I mean, Kyle said, hey, it's going exactly the way I thought it was going to go. Nobody is seeming alarmed.
Kyle's a guy we can trust and believe at this point, right? Whatever he says, his word, take it to the bank.
Yeah, nobody's got alarmed. Nobody's alarmed. Nobody seems to be concerned. Nobody seems to be worried. Everybody's like, yeah, this is what I expected. Wilkes isn't saying anything. Hey, I just work here. Lynch is like, I expect him to be there week 1. To me, I thought it would get done by the 20th. It's now the 28th. What's your read on the situation? What's going on here?
I mean, Ian Rappaport went on the Pat McAfee show today and says, I don't get the sense that they're close at all. So I don't get the sense anything is imminent. But at least it sounds like there's been some level of conversation, I guess, which is as there should be. It's like there's been at least some touching base. Doesn't sound good, Larry. It doesn't sound good. It sounds like Nick Bosa isn't negotiating. The Niners are waiting for him to negotiate. He's not communicating, or he's just saying, no, I want what I want. And it just feels like we're getting close to him asking for a trade, which is crazy. I don't know. They're not close.
That would be a nightmare. If Bosa asks for a trade.
How are they not close 2 weeks before the season started?
Well, not only that, they put this thing off for a year. They've been looking at this negotiation for 2 years. So I got to know, what the terms are if they're not close. And at this point, why aren't they close? Callie Safri says, "Hey Grant, I think you, Larry, Coach, and everyone else that collabs with you should become talent evaluators and consultants for the Niners, since Kyle and John suck at that. That would be effing badass, don't you think? Aloha."
Well, I already hired myself as quality control, so I feel like I do it all. It's a wide umbrella with quality control.
There you go. Jordan Hovan says, "Can't wait until we block TJ Watt from Ross Dwelly week 1. In all seriousness, McKivitz better be ready. Pressure's on the quarterback room. That's not deep anymore." McKivitz, I think, is going to be better than people think. I know there's a lot of people that are very nervous about McKivitz. I don't consider myself one of them. I like McKivitz over McGlinchey as a pass protector. Jabus says, "Y'all seen JT O'Sullivan's Purdy Game 3 assessment?" I saw it, but I didn't watch it. I saw they did one. I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
Nah.
Purdy's elbow almost got ripped off again on another 7-step drop play. He pointed that out. Purdy, by the way, did not play today. Did you? I mean, Purdy had.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was in practice, but he only threw like one throw for every 5. Every drill, he did one throw, and that was it. So
that's good. That's good.
That
stuff.
is a concern.
That's what you want.
On the goal line says, "Does anyone know if Brock's arm is more fragile now after the surgery? I'm worried about what happens if and when it gets hit. Also, Grant, is there a way to apply to become a writer for all 49ers?
Yeah, email me. DM me on Twitter. I'll look for you.
Mike Monahan says, "Grant, you don't look high for a change."
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's high praise.
I was going to say. Ricky Williams, "I don't know, fellas. I don't feel like this roster is good enough, specifically in the trenches. Still feel like we have to do some things via trade or free agency." I kind of agree. I kind of agree. I think there's some weaknesses here. We'll get to that.
They should trade their next 3 first-round picks. Trade them.
Yeah, for an offensive lineman. Our Daz 0817, are O-line issues stemming from Kyle's hubris, or does the front office really not value the O-line? O-line is a top priority for teams like the Chiefs, Eagles, and Cowboys. They did have an opportunity to go with a third-round tackle, and they said, you know what? We need a kicker, even though they had a kicker, and they needed a tight end, and both of them over a tackle in the third round. You could have Dawan Jones, Blake Freeland, some of those guys.
Yeah, the only offensive lineman on the team that's there for pass protection is the left tackle. Every other player on the team is a run blocker, and the Niners feel like those are undervalued, and you can find them later in the draft. So they have guys who can't hang one-on-one in pass protection other than the left tackle, and that's how it is by design. And that's how it was in Denver in the 90s with Mike Shanahan. They really haven't updated their philosophy too much.
Ryan says, "Is there a world where Javon Kinlaw is cut tomorrow?" I think absolutely there is. I said this might be the final night of Kinlaw in a 49er uniform. Now, it doesn't benefit the Niners to say goodbye, but he's not getting a lot done, whether it be rushing the passer or against the run, and I just kind of wonder.
They were a lot more patient with him than they were with Trey Lance. They ran Trey Lance off the team. What has Javon done?
Well, Javon,
what are they waiting for?
Javon just played this entire game last week. I don't think he made a single tackle. Now, he does penetrate into the backfield. He can do some things where he's waltzing the guard back into the lap of the quarterback. gets penetration, but he doesn't come off blocks. He doesn't plug the A gap. He's not great against the run. He doesn't sack the quarterback. So I mean, I hate to throw the "what would you say you do here" line because it seems kind of snarky. But I mean, come on, man. At some point, you got to produce. Niner Gold says, "What if we win Week 1 without Bosa?"
I love what if questions.
Yeah.
Then your ass will fall off. It'll just fall off.
Then you'll be 1-0. Yeah. Carlos M says, Grant Cohn, now your narratives that Trey Lance needs to sit.
I didn't say he needs to sit. I said he's going to be on a team with a coach who has developed a quarterback who was not playing. So he's got a chance. And he may be playing soon. We don't know. See what happens.
Calais Safri says, hi, Larry. Grant pronounced my name right. LOL. Love y'all. Did I say it? What was it? Callie. Is it Callie?
I don't know. I didn't say his name.
Okay.
I don't know.
I thought maybe it was somebody from your channel. HR says, I can't support this regime. I'll be happy for the Bay Area if the Niners win the Super Bowl, but I'm turning in my fandom card after 40 years. Go Warriors. I wonder how many people are at least skeptical about the way things have gone.
I mean, if they start winning, people will be good. But if they lose, like this resentment will only grow. It's a big year for Kyle.
Ty Budd says, Grant, be careful. Remember, Kinlaw's you-know-whats are bigger.
He hasn't seen mine.
That's right.
I'm sorry. He doesn't know.
Okay.
He can talk about his own, but not mine.
What do you think there is something? First of all, I watched the game. I've tried to get through it a second time. It's preseason, so I've fallen asleep at least twice trying to watch it again. Did Brock get his arm yanked in the Charger game that I didn't see?
I didn't see it. I got to go watch JT O'Sullivan. I did see him trip over Jordan Mason. That was scary.
Yeah, well, they kind of banged
scary.
knees.
Yeah,
I thought maybe
get him out of there.
I thought maybe today was about the fact that they had banged knees with each other in the backfield because he did do some deep knee bends, but yeah, the elbow would be really bad. But he was playing catch. He just wasn't throwing his normal array of passes. And when the PR staff was asked about it, they said there was no issue with Brock. It's just that he's 100% cleared, but he's still on a pitch count. That's what they said today.
I thought they would say he was done with the pitch count.
According to the PR staff, he's on the pitch count.
They're back on the pitch count. Back on the pitch count. All right, cool.
Which the timing of that is just very, very disturbing. A non-user says, Jed should have just told them no to Trey trade. We invested too much, but he's too much of a milquetoast. Pipes up when it was Harbaugh, now nothing. I wonder if Jed created the urgency that made them pivot away from Trey. I think that's very possible. John Muniz says, do you guys think...
Or traded.
Possibly. John says, do you guys think that the front office has ruined their rep with future free agent pickups or even with our own free agents, mainly Brandon Ayuk? I would guess not, but who knows? I mean, that's something that's inner agent
money talks. Money talks.
Yeah. If you show up and you're willing to drop money, you're going to get guys. HB Nate 55 says 7-step drop around 5 feet away from Purdy elbow.
Okay. 5 inches? 5 feet? 5 inches.
Or is that 5 inches?
5 inches?
Yeah, I guess that is inches. Calais Safri says, you did it right the second time, Larry. Mahalo. LOL. Callie? Maybe it was Callie. Callie Safri. All right, Grant. Let's hit the roster real quick. Tomorrow's the cut down. Are you expecting anything dramatic to go on? Let me do the quick share screen. We can look at the depth chart. Here it is right here. Let's start with wide receivers. Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, those three are on. Mm-hmm. And then Ronnie Bell, I'd say that's 4. Mm-hmm. How many receivers do you got? Do you put Danny Gray on the IR? Do you put Ray on the IR, or do you put and season-ending IR, which means you put him on the IR before the cut down, or do you carry him on the 53 and then switch him immediately to the IR? Or like how do you see the wide receivers after the top four? And I think they're going 5 wide receivers.
Yeah, I think they're going to go with 6 wide receivers. I think they're going to have Gray and McLeod and Ronnie Bell. And I think after those guys are on the 53, then they'll put Gray and McLeod on IR and sign 2 other people. But I think they're going to want McLeod and Gray to come back at some point this year.
Okay.
And I think they're going to want to keep Ronnie. I think Ronnie Bell's shown enough to make this team.
And then who do you think the other 2 would be? Because, everybody's looked pretty good. Winstead, I thought, looked good in this last game. They also have Willie Snead, who's had a great camp. Tay Martin.
No, I'm with you. I think they'll end up probably keeping 5, but they'll have 6 on the initial one. They'll put 2 on the IR, and then they'll probably sign one. It could be Willie Snead. It could be Winstead. It could be Conley. But
okay.
Initially, it'll be 6, I think.
Conley would make sense because he's the one vertical threat. How about O-line? The starting 5 is not. I like the starting 5: Trent, Banks, Brendel, Burford, McKivitz. I feel good about those guys. I just don't feel good about any of the backups. Any. Pryor played better in this game. Feliciano's old and doesn't move all that well. I know they like Zakel as a guy. Jalen Moore played well against the Chargers. I like Il Manning a little bit. Everybody else is like, I don't see it. So how many backup offensive linemen do they take? Who do you think they will be? Will there be 2? Will there be 3?
I think it'd be a mistake to keep more than 2. You only have 7 offensive linemen active on game day. So if you want to bring up another one, you can always call up a dude from practice squad. It could be Il Manning. No one's going to put Il Manning on their 53-man roster. So I think they should cut Matt Pryor and Il Manning, waive Il Manning, put him on the practice squad, and keep Feliciano and Jalen Moore. Because if you keep Matt Pryor, he's not good. You're going to cut someone who's better than him. So don't do that.
Yeah. He's somebody at a different position, you mean? You'll be cutting
exactly,
somebody. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
A D lineman, a wide receiver, a DB. Yeah.
I could see them trading for a swing tackle, but even now it's like I have a hard time, especially since they just traded Trey Lance for a 4th-round pick. That's probably the same pick it would take to get a swing tackle. I think they won't make that move just for that reason, just for the fact that people would see that the same amount that they would just got for their quarterback, they're trading to another team for a 3rd-string tackle. What about tight end? Is Latu done for the year?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, so maybe he goes on IR before the cut. Do you think how many tight ends will they carry? Personally, I think this is such a deep roster. I'd rather carry 3 tight ends, and I'd go with Kittle, Braden Willis, and I don't care at that point. If you want Warner, Dwelly, Fumagalli, whatever, but to me it's Kittle, Willis, and a 3rd guy. How do you see tight end?
I think they're going to keep 4. I feel like it's going to be Kittle,
they always
Willis,
do.
Dwelly, and Werner. For whatever reason, it's going to be. I think they were looking to push Werner off the roster with Latu, but it didn't happen. So I think you got Kittle, Dwelly, Werner, and Willis. They like Will. I don't know why they like Werner and why they like Werner. I like Dwelly. I don't know why they like Dwelly because they don't use him. But I think those 4 are going to make the team.
Werner's ball skills are just so bad. How about quarterback? It's Purdy and Arnold, but then Kyle wouldn't even commit to Allen being on the roster. Are they going to try to play some roster games with using Allen's spot and putting him on the practice squad and just and then maybe maneuvering, or do you think they'll carry 3 on the final 53?
I think they should just keep 2. I don't think any other team wants Brandon Allen. If they do, great. But I think they could probably put Brandon Allen in the practice squad and just keep 2.
How about running back? McCaffrey, Mitchell, Mason, Price, and Juice, those 5, and McNichols, Brian Hill, and Coletto are cut? Or do you think that there's a lot of people that think that Coletto is their fullback of the future and that they may try to squeeze Coletto onto the final 53 and then let him build up his body on the practice squad and have him sitting there when they cut Juice next year?
Yeah, if they think someone's going to pick Coletto up off waivers because other teams are running Shanahan's system and they need a fullback, then they might keep him. That's interesting. It's possible. I feel like he hasn't done enough to be on the team. You don't need 2 fullbacks, and he can't play tight end. But if they want him for next year and they think he's going to get poached, they'll keep him.
Okay, the specialist, Wisnowski, Pepper, and who's the one kicker going to be? Is it going to be Jake Moody with the quad, Zane Gonzalez with the calf, Robbie Gold with less money, or today they worked out Tristan Vizcaino and got another guy named Taylor Russolino. Never heard of Taylor Russolino.
That inspires confidence. And it's going to be Jake Moody, and then I wouldn't be surprised if they put him on IR for a few weeks, or they just make him inactive for a few weeks while he returns. But yeah, it's going to be Jake Moody. Zane Gonzalez is gone. I just don't feel like Robbie Gold's coming back. I feel like there's something acrimonious between them, like some personal stuff. I don't know. It feels like it's not going to happen.
How about D-line? How many D-linemen do they carry? To me, this is wide open. I mean, you've got Drake, Armstead, Hargrave, Farrell. You still don't have Bosa, so those are your front four. Then you have Givens and Hyder and Kinlaw and Beal, who hasn't practiced in a week, and Austin Bryant, Kalia Davis, T.Y. McGill, Alex Barrett, Marlon Davidson. I mean, seriously, this is actually, I think, hugely important. I think this might be a major issue for the team. They used to have Ebukam and Amenahue and Willis, and they let those guys go, and I don't like any of these guys nearly as much that they replaced them with. What do you think? How many D linemen and does Kinlaw make it? Does Beal make it? I mean, what do you think?
I don't think either one makes it. I think Beal is going to be on IR all year. He hasn't done anything. And I think Kinlaw, I mean, they're D tackle. They should be keeping Hargrave, Armstead, Givens, Kalia Davis, McGill. All those guys I would keep over him. Even
Davidson's played way better.
Which defensive tackle on the Niners is worse than him?
That's the thing. I mean, McGill's in better shape. Here's the one thing that's kind of frustrating about the Niners up front. They got a bunch of one-gap penetrators. So Givens and Hargrave and McGill and Kalia and Davidson, they're all one-gap penetrators. The only guys who aren't one-gap guys are Armstead and Kinlaw, but Armstead's the only guy that really is stout against the run. I think they may need to find another Ridgeway-type player that's not named Kinlaw.
I agree.
It's not in this camp.
Agree. Yep. I totally agree.
How about
they got
linebacker?
Some work to do on their roster. What's interesting about this 53?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they poach players off of other rosters. Like, depth is a problem for them. They need someone's offensive lineman. They need someone's defensive lineman. They do.
Yeah, they really do. Especially up front on the defensive side. How about linebacker? I mean, they're loaded here. Greenlaw, Warner. I would go with the kids. I would go with McCrary, Ball, Winters, and Graham, and I think I'd go with 5 linebackers, and maybe cut Curtis Robinson, trade maybe either Oren Burks or Flanagan Fowles if I could get a day 3 pick. But that's the route I'm going. There's no way I'm cutting McCrary, Ball, Winters, or Graham. I think those guys really all played well this summer.
You might be able to sneak McCrary, Ball on the practice squad, but other than that, I'm with you. I think the Niners should be trading some of these. They have like the deepest linebacker room in the league. People love their linebackers. They could trade Flanagan Fells. They could trade Burks. They could trade Curtis Robinson. They could trade all of them. Probably for nothing more than a late 6, but that's something considering how the Niners just throw picks away.
I think they're pretty set at safety. It's Afonga and Gibson. It's Odom, who's a great special teamer in the 3rd round pick, Jair Brown. Hawkins, I think, broke the hand, so he'll go on a season-ending IR. Hartsfield, I think, gets cut. So I think the safety thing is really clear-cut. The corner situation, Mooney, Lenore, Womack, Ambry Thomas, Deshaun Jameson, and if it comes right down to it, I'm going with Quantrez Knight, and I'm cutting Isaiah Oliver. I know Isaiah Oliver.
We all want it. We all want it.
He's outplayed him.
Quantrez earned it. Isaiah did not.
Yeah. Now, do you think that's something they would actually do?
Yes. They don't play roster politics, right? They got rid of Trey Lance, right? You got to keep the best player. I don't give a damn what you invested in him. Javon, Isaiah, you got to make the right call. So let's see what the Niners do. Or they only take a hard line on quarterbacks. Let's see.
Do you agree that Deshaun Jameson ought to be on the roster? Because I do. I mean, and then they got Luter on the pup. So
right.
what do they do with him?
So here's
pretty clear he's
corners.
Healthy.
The 6 corners are Ward, Lenore, Ambry, Womack, Jameson, Knight. Boom. Those are your 6. And then you
I
get
agree.
4 safeties. Boom. Sorry, Isaiah. Play better.
Yeah. Do they pay him a lot of money, or could they cut him loose?
It's like 2 years, $7 million. Like they gave him. I mean, that's the thing though. Like, is Jed pissed at them? Are they afraid of wasting more of Jed's money and time? I don't know. Like, he just wrote the check for this freaking guy. What are they going to do? Let's see.
Let's hit a couple more supers, and then I got the final question for you. HB Nate's 55 says 7-step drop 5 inches away from Purdy's elbow. I think we hit that one before. Sorry about reading that twice. Callie Safri, you did it right the second time. Okay, we actually got that one too. Okay, not Callie, Calais. The lay.
Calais.
I got you. Calais Safri. Sorry about that, Calais. And we've got this one from Damian Josso. Says, should have traded Armstead instead to make cap space. We gave this guy $80 million deal for the year. 2015, 2 sacks. 2016, 2.5 sacks. 2017, 1.5 sacks. 2018, 3 sacks. 2019, 10. 2020, 3.5. 2021, 6. 2020, 0. Pathetic waste of cap space. I mean, I do understand that they should have gone with Buckner. You never trade guys who command double teams on your front 7. That's the rule of thumb. They broke the rule of thumb. They fell in love with Armstead. I think Armstead actually is pretty damn good because I think he's the only guy in their front that can really be trusted to play the run. But the sack total, they've not been spectacular for the kind of money that they're throwing him. That's for sure.
Right.
Dazzo says, if we're truly all in this year, is there a potential D-line, O-line player we can trade for, like the CMC trade?
You got to see who falls out of contention early, but there could be.
I mean, to me, Washington and Montez Sweat, and to me, that's the guy to get if you can get somebody at the end of the draft or at the end of the at the trade deadline. All right, number one issue going into this year is it. Some people would say it's the quarterback. We talked a lot about the quarterback. I don't think it is the quarterback. I would say it's either the run D. The Niners have given up, Grant, over 6 yards a carry the last 2 preseason games. Or it's the pass rush depth, which we already kind of outlined is very thin. Or it's the offensive line overall, especially if there's even one injury, because they're very paper thin on the offensive line. So it's a thin O-line, it's a thin D-line, it's a D-line that doesn't stop the run. What's the number one issue in your mind?
I think the number one issue is big. I think it's widespread, and I think it's the depth. I mean, this is a team that's been so deep, so many young players, like the next man up team. Like Raheem Mostert was the backup running back when they were in the Super Bowl. Now I don't think it's there. I don't know that they can overcome injuries. They got to be like not one of the top 10 most injured teams, and they are every single year. So like, you like their offensive line. I don't, but you do. You take one of those guys off and put John Feliciano out there at Jalen Moore. I mean, they might beat some teams, but if they're playing Dallas week 5, it could be an issue. So, I mean, you can go down the line. If it ain't Brock Purdy, do you trust Sam Darnold? If it ain't freaking Nick Bosa, do you trust Cleveland Farrell and Drake Jackson? Like, this team is top heavy and thin, and it wouldn't be so much if they had used their 3 first-round picks the last 3 years, but they didn't. So they got a tightrope to walk. They need a full season of Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, all the top paid guys. Like 80% of them need to play the whole year. Trent Williams, Nick Bosa.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing about the Niners that's so intriguing is it looks like from afar that Debo, Ayuk, and McCaffrey all look like they could be primed for career years. If you say, give me the one thing that makes me feel good, it's that. The one thing that makes me feel bad is the run D. Because to me, you could have Nick Bosa, you could have 5 freaking Nick Bosas. If you never get to 3rd and long, what good's Nick Bosa? Nick Bosa's a 3rd and long animal. If you don't have a tackle in the middle to slow down the run, and it's just run some more, and they're always sitting at 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, Nick Bosa is not worth anything. So to me, I think they need that piece inside. That's a run piece. One non-super, Randall says Larry loves Spencer Wagee, and too bad he's gone. Yeah, I touted Spencer Wagee all summer, and he just
okay. You didn't say he was going to make the team as an undrafted rookie. That's a tall task.
Yeah, he was on the ground too much. As a defensive lineman, you got to stay on your feet. And on
I
the
feel
goal
like
line,
he's one of these guys that rushes into the chest of an offensive lineman. Like the thing I like about Hargrave, and Kinlaw doesn't do this, is he's always on an edge. So even if you block him, he's gonna be unblocked in like a second or two. It's just Solomon Thomas rushed into people's chest. Kinlaw, Waggy, the good ones are always working an edge. You can't stay blocked forever.
It's so funny when you said that too. I just pictured him in all those one-on-one drills, and that's exactly what Waggy did. He went, like he was going to bull rush everybody, and he never came off of a block. He was just glued to the blocks. On the goal line, says you're all going to do a record
like
prediction
Velcro.
before week 1. What do you think, Grant? I'm going 10-7.
That's what I said that's what I said when I saw their
I was thinking 11-6
schedule when it came out. 11-6 is fair. I feel like that's fair too. I went a little negative, but now that like there's just all these black clouds hanging over the team, I'm thinking like, 10-7 seems kind of fair. They were 10-7 a couple years ago. They made that crazy run, but we'll see. I also could see them going 13-4 and losing in the first round. There's something off about this team. I don't know what it is. It's a lot of pressure on this team.
That would be a very impressive regular season and a very unimpressive playoffs.
Yeah.
49er throwbacks as Kyle Shanahan continues to do the 7-step drop back. That's how Brock Purdy got hurt. JT O'Sullivan explains it in his video. Hate that call. I don't love it either. To me, I've seen hardly any of it this summer. It's been a lot of the ball coming out underneath over and over and over again. 2 last supers. Lorenzo Pinto, love you guys. I got us losing week 1 because of Kyle. And Shady Luke says, I'm a Philly fan. Kyle's smart, man, but it's weird. Good teams invest heavy in the trenches, even when they don't need it.
Philly does.
If there's been one thing that's been frustrating to watch in this Lance situation is the draft capital that they gave away has basically prevented them from being the deep football team that you probably need to be if you're going to get by Philly, Kansas City, and win the whole thing.
I mean, instead of Kinlaw, they could have had Tristan Wirfs. Instead of Trey Lance, they could have had Micah Parsons. Like these things matter, and it's impressive that the Niners have built such a good team with all these missteps in the first round. But it catches up to you. It catches up to you. So we'll see what happens.
They're far more loaded than they should be for a team that lost all these picks, and that's a testament to how good they do after the draft and in day 3. But are they good enough to be the best team standing or the last team standing? That's we're gonna have to find out.
They're gonna need some breaks.
Grant, what do you got cooking the rest of the week? When do you tomorrow's cut down day? Tomorrow's gonna be a big day, man. Are you just gonna
huge?
There's
day.
No media availability. I mean, I would imagine there'll be a couple trades tomorrow. I would imagine there's gonna be all kinds of movement around the league. I'm gonna be camping out here in Camp Krueger here. We're getting ready to make videos probably if the Niners do stuff. But what do you got cooking on your channel the rest of the day? Or you're done for the night, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm done for the night. Tuesdays are Cohn Zone with my pops, so I'll be talking to my dad after everything's done in the afternoon, and then Wednesday and Thursday back down to Santa Clara. I'll see you. We'll be working. We'll be grinding, watching half of practice.
Hey, tell Pops I said hi. Thanks to the sponsors on the bottom: Marin Auto Glass, New York Style Italian Sausage, and of course, Pig and a Pickle. Grant, good stuff, man. We'll talk soon.
Good stuff.
Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.